So Saturday's done. It's Sunday preview time now. Looking ahead to the major racing, what's going to be a stellar day of racing on Sunday in both Britain and Ireland. Cheltenham's of course on, and we've also got a lot of stuff in Ireland as well, including
the best hurdler we've seen for 10 years probably.
Fingers crossed, the return of Faugheen.
Yeah. Should we start with him?
Of course, yeah. We'll start with Ireland if you like.
Yeah. It's a really interesting one, isn't it, Faugheen? Because we try and talk about these races from a betting perspective, but it's nearly impossible to talk about this race from a betting perspective because the main question is what sort of Faugheen are we going to get? What version of Faugheen? How diluted, if at all, is he going to be? So it's 665 days since we last saw him. But that, when we last saw him, was in the Irish Champion Hurdle in 2016, January 2016. And that was his best performance ever. Probably the best hurdling performance we've seen in 10 years by any hurdler. And it just cemented his position as one of the all-time greats, and not just a sort of modern great, but an all-time great hurdler, Faugheen. So then we had last season forever chat about he might come back here, he might come back there. They were never quite happy with him, and that really manifested through the lack of a plan almost. There was no plan in place with him. But, touch wood, smooth sailing through the summer, and he's got his first engagement in the Morgiana. A significant Morgiana because one of his rare reversals came in this on his reappearance. And you're sort of thinking that really history is going to repeat itself. Faugheen is too brilliant a racehorse and too important to both Mullins and Ritchie and Walsh for them to have him eyeballs out first time out. It's not going to happen. We're not going to see a fully formed, finely tuned version of Faugheen. It's just very unlikely, but it's going to be, so what he does for 3/4 of the race is going to be significant, and whether that old power and talent is intact. So from a betting point of view, you couldn't back Faugheen, but he's an impossible horse to sort of price up. He's an impossible horse to price up in the context of what he's up against today. But we just sort of hope, I really hope that he wins, and even if it's scruffy or it's workmanlike, it will be great to see Faugheen back, or giving indication that he's back, because he's a really important horse to not just connections but also to hurdling and to the sport itself.
Is the Faugheen of the past still the one to beat if he comes back? Is he straight back to the top of the division? Would you say, or do you think Bouverdere is going to take some beating?
No, you'd sort of think that Faugheen would have gobbled up that rabble last year, even if it had been 90% fit. That's sort of my impression, is that Bouverdere was a default champion hurdle winner. He was the best of what was left, but we didn't have a star, and Faugheen certainly is a star. So, yeah, I wonder what price he is for champion hurdle. I didn't expect you to.
I haven't actually looked it up, no, to be honest.
But no, I think that's the relevant point to make, is that if we get a 90% version of Faugheen, or even looks like a 90% version of Faugheen, he is still going to be top dog in the hurdling division, I think. It's really, it's not all about betting racing. It's sometimes about the plots and the stories and the big guns who really add something to the season. And there's probably none being bigger than him over hurdles for a decade or so. So it's one of those where I won't have a better course now, but I'll watch it like I've had a bet, if you know what I mean. I get the same sensations and the same sort of adrenaline rush just because of the question marks surrounding Faugheen. Look what he's up against, by the way. Jesky's in there, former champion hurdle winner himself, who looked to have plenty of pork and gear still intact at Tipperary. We've got Campiador, it's time for him to step up now. He's always been talked about and whispered about, this really good horse. He's had problems and mishaps that have blighted his career, but he returned with, it wasn't a bang, but it was a sort of, when that firework off and it shoots into the sky and then just does something a little bit whimpery at the finish. That was what he was like on his reappearance, but again, the promise is all intact. You think the Vroom Vroom Mag will probably need the run and need more of a test than this. But again, those and Swamp Fox are going to test Faugheen to the full for sure. So I think that Willie Mullins will be happy with the opposition because it will give him a specific answer, right or wrong, as to what Faugheen or what version of Faugheen is still around. I mean, the final point about Faugheen is that he'll be turning 10 on New Year's Day, but he didn't start till he was 6. and he's had just 12 races in his life. So it's not really about the age and the wear and tear. It's more about the impact of that injury and the absence, because we've done a lot of research with various horses who've made big comebacks and trying to find a correlation between the former ability, the length of the absence, and what history tells us is likely to come out. And Faugheen probably it's odds against, certainly it's probably 6-4, 7-4 that we get Faugheen the same version we had before his injury, because although he's low mileage, he is of a certain age and he has done so much already. But we could talk about Faugheen all day, but I'm really excited about the Morgiana because it will tell us probably everything about Faugheen.
So it's bound to be fascinating, and there's not just a hurdling star, there's a potential chasing star on the same card as well, in presenting Percy, who made a really good impression on chasing.
What did you call it? Imperious,
yeah, something like that. It sounded like the Timeform report.
But the thing about presenting Percy is that he never really went down the orthodox route of a novice hurdler, but he was one of the best novice hurdlers of last year when he won at Cheltenham, the big Cheltenham handicap. Won it by a street, essentially, didn't he? So he had his first chase at Galway. And yeah, I think he was every bit as impressive as he could be, given that they only jogged around and it was 2 3/4 mile, which probably isn't his métier in terms of stamina. But he jumped really efficiently, really sort of accurately. I went back and watched it again, and he never looked like making a mistake. Not what you would call extravagant or bold, but really, really efficient. And he's not even top rated here, but that's simply a symptomatic of the fact that he hasn't had the chance to flex his muscles yet as a chaser. But it did suggest at Galway that he would be every bit as good over fences as he was over hurdles. Shattered Love is the filly for Gordon Elliott, and it's no coincidence that he's put her in here because she gets all the allowances, and like Denaria does or Bo through the week, he's really good at pinpointing races where he can fully utilise that allowance, and she's 2 from 2 over fences. Jury Duty, another one of Gordon Elliott's, who was second last time out over fences but has made a generally positive start. We've got experienced horse like Abra de Vie, who's had 10 chases already for Willie Mullins. So just back to that point again of it's a testing ground for presenting Percy, but a lot of us at Timeform really love this horse just because of what he did and how he motored through last season. And I think that he's about 6-4, isn't he, in the early exchange?
About around
11 to 8-ish. Yeah. You can see that though, can't you? You wouldn't be surprised if he went off 10 to 11, given that hurdling ability and how good he was at Galway. But really exciting there. We've also got another Grade 2 novice chase over 2 miles, which includes Tombstone. Many people remember Tombstone as being gambled on left, right and centre in his life. He's made a winning start over fences last time. But this is 2 mile, this race, and you always sort of associate Tombstone with being a bit more of a 2.5 mile horse. And Brillard's a really interesting one in there for another Elliott horse, because he's come up against Footpad and Petit Mouchoir, amongst others, in novice chases so far. And either of those two, if they were fit or pointing this direction, would be odds on to win this race. So we're going to learn a lot on Sunday about the health and wealth of Faugheen, about just how special his presenting Percy might be over fences, and about sort of another collection of novices in terms of Brillard and Tombstone, because we were already getting those early lines, Nick, about who's representing who by proxy and which form lines look better than others. So really interesting there. And to sort of complement and make a fuller picture, we've got a good novice chase in Cheltenham as well, haven't we?
Yeah.
Which is again 2 miles, so we'll get that Anglo-Irish line with the ratings, and look out for the ratings update on Monday, because that'll quantify and classify all of these form lines and try and tie them all together. But involved in Britain in that novice chase, it's only 4 runners, isn't it? But Capitaine, North Hill Harvey, River Wild and Aussie the Oscar, and that's a brilliant race again, isn't it? Aussie the Oscar's the underdog, but he was the underdog last time, wasn't he?
Yeah, I've got a real soft spot for Aussie the Oscar. It's his game as they come. So,
and at least he's got an edge in sort of experience, and he's sort of been there and done that a little bit more than the others who were just starting out their chasing career. Capitain's always, he's one of the, there's a sort of a general theory and a general rule of appreciation that the nutcase hurdlers, those who don't settle and look a bit flimsy and flighty, they make really good chases. And Capitain was a bit of a nutcase hurdler in that his head wasn't always in the right place. It didn't match up to his body at times, and that there was mixed messages. Someone, I can't remember who it was, who said that a horse's brain is so far away from its legs that naturally the two rarely go in tandem, and the Capitain certainly struggled with that. And even on his chasing debut, there was the awkward and wayward elements to that, but he was really good last time when he won by 22 lengths at Market Race, and yeah, I mean, this is a really good race. River Wild, third in the Supreme last year, was solid if unspectacular on his chasing debut at Utoxeter.
Very efficient, if I remember correctly.
Really, really good. Really good. And that Utoxeter race, for some reason, is always a bit better. It's thrown out there earlier in the season, midweek, but it always tends to work out well, that race, and it draws some big guns like River Wild. And North Hill Harvey, who won at Cheltenham, beat Sir Royal, didn't it, at the first meeting there, showed a really good attitude. Perhaps hasn't got the scope of River Wild or a Capitain in terms of raw ability, but he won the Greatwood last year. And I really like Dan Skelton's in the Greatwood again this year. That more hired.
Yeah.
Odd handicap the Greatwood this year because the new ones are in, isn't he?
Yeah.
And there's only one horse. The rest of the horses are all 11 stone or under. He's more or less compressing the handicap. We've got 4 or 5 out of the handicap because he's pushing all the weights down. Fascinating that the new one is being given this chance to win a valuable handicap hurdle. But just to frame the case for More Hired a little more, he was a really useful flat horse. I forgot how good a flat horse he was. He sort of ran in the Irish 2000 Guineas and finished 6th to Glen Eagles, ran to 108 on the Timeform scale. Dan Skelton got hold of him and quickly, as you might imagine, sort of transformed him as a hurdler. He finished 3rd in the Scottish Champion hurdle when he was just out of the weight. He was £1 out of the handicap that day. But he's got a mark of 137, which is the real sweet spot in this race because it means that he's in the handicap proper, so he's not in a false position, but he's carrying just 10 stone. And as with Northville Harvey last year, who came to this first time out more hired, is trying to enact and exact the same plan exactly. So More Hired, for me, that might be my bet of the weekend in the Greatwood. 137 is the same mark as Jenkins, who's the favourite, isn't it? I can't work out Jenkins.
No, he's one of these whisper horses, isn't he? But
yeah,
we barely saw him last season.
We barely saw him last season. No, yeah.
That's worse than my jokes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, it's rubbing off on me. But you come back Jenkins on his hurdles form, you could back him on his bumper form. But the bumper form, you're going back sort of 2 years. There has been good money for him, as you might imagine, but it might be people sort of joining the dots as much as anticipate or with any real foundation in his hurdles form anyway for me. So More Hired, he's got the perfect profile for a race like the Greatwood.
And London Prize deserves a mention.
Oh yeah, London Prize.
Because he's quickly becoming one of the most popular horses in training. Everything he has a go at, he seems to give a really good fist to, and of course won last week as well.
Did Ben tip that up?
Ben did tip that up. Yeah, I've not mentioned, but Ben got 3 winners last week.
We mentioned it now, haven't we? We mentioned it 6 times before we came on air. So, how good is Ian Williams, by the way? He's one of those trainers where I always knew he was good, but he's remarkable in terms of sort of harken back to yesteryear almost for these big dual purpose horses who can do lots of different things. And yeah, you can see why they're swinging the bat, because he is well handicapped on the back of that elite, and he is used to racing in quick succession. And I often think that the reason why I mentioned More Hired was 108 flat horse was that when they rattle around Cheltenham on this track over 2 miles, it feels like a flat race. It's the closest thing I think in jumps to a flat race, the County Hurdle, the Greatwood Hurdle, races like this where flat speed and foot speed really count. And obviously London Prize very recently has shown himself to be a really good flat performer in the Cesaro, which in the Northumberland Play consolation race before that. And I am certainly drawn more towards those than the more national hunty types.
So More Hired in the Greatwood for you, he's better the weekend.
I think so, yeah. Yeah. The more I look at this, the more I'm drawn to it, and I just think that there is a sort of profile for a valuable handicap hurdle winner, especially at this stage of the season, and the Skeletons have worked that out. And obviously the price it's been sort of chipped away at in the course of the week, but there's still some meat on the bones there at about 7-1.
We'll give you that. If that one comes home, that will have
Does that beat Ben?
That would beat
no,
Ben. Well, yeah, for price, I think it would. Yeah, it would homer him out of the park, really.
Quick word on the slow chase. We'd be remiss of us not to deal with this, because when you get the slow chase was introduced, I think it's only about 10 years old. It's already got a great history because of what Sprinter Sacre did. This was the sort of revival point for him. But the reason why it's introduced was to give the established 2 mile chases a way back into the season, a sort of a foothold or a springboard into the season, but also to draw in last year's big 2 mile novice chases. And we've got the perfect marriage here. You know, the slow chase couldn't be better in terms of what's at stake and what's on the table, because we've got the first and second from the Queen Mother Champion chase, Special Tiara and Fox Norton, and we've got the second from the Arkle chase in Cloudy Dream. And this is fascinating, this, isn't it? And it's one of those races where we know exactly what's going to happen, at least for 90% of it, because Special Tiara, any race Special Tiara, he just tears off and plays Catch Me If You Can. And I'm just sort of thinking that I was trying to think of another animal, because it's a game of cat and mouse for sure between Special Tiara and Fox Norton, and Fox Norton will be aware and active not to let Special Tiara get too much rope. And I'm just thinking, what sort of animal is Cloudy Dream, where he's watching the cat and the mouse?
The fox.
The fox might.
Although that Fox Norton probably possibly get a bit confusing, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Now I had armadillo.
Armadillo.
Wait. Because an armadillo, he's known as the Hoover Hog, because that's what he does. And I just think that he might be hoovering up the pieces once those two, once the cat and mouse have ran each other out and played their game. The Hoover Hog might be in a position to sweep up the pieces later on. But I really like Cloudy Dream. Loads of us, obviously, the Jumps department really like Cloudy Dream. You could hear the audible screams in the old Roan when he had his wobble at the end, and Succumb having looked the likely winner at every stage of the race. But this could be, you know, he's here by mistake because he was wasn't entered in the Bet Victor Gold Cup, which was his plan. This didn't attract a full entry, therefore was reopened, and therefore he was entered here. But it might just be the perfect playground for him, with a really fast run 2 mile around Cheltenham. And he's a long way off that standard yet, but when you think of sort of northern grey powerhouses who by accident or design found themselves back at 2 mile, you sort of think of One Man, who had a similar profile and a similar gameplay almost as Cloudy Dream, and that he just tanked through the races, and then it would be, when would the wobble kick in? It's a bit too early to put Cloudy Dream A in his class, of course it is, but and B in terms of the same makeup and same DNA. But this is going to be, you know, a lot of the race we've said, it's a fascinating race, and this one really is the Schleier.
Just Cloudy Dream the bet for you then in this? Or
yeah, but not like
just
a playful bet.
Playful.
Yeah, and just in the hope that the cat and the mouse
succumb to the armadillo.
And the armadillo trundles his way into it late.
Can armadillos run?
I hope this one can.
Well, on that note,
yeah,
we'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Nick.
Not a problem.
Come on, the armadillo!